Chapter 10. Not Ready. Same day, Monday, January 7th, 1935. Back home, I check the clock. 4:45. Still not time to wake my dad. On my bed, I spread out 2 double ham sandwiches, a bowl of potato salad, and the tail end of a salami, and crack open my book. I've just finished chapter 11 when I hear the knock. Somewhere in the back of my head, the knocking has been going on for some time. I run through the living room. Before I even open the door, I know who it is by the whistling, wheezing, and breathing. "Mrs. Capone," I say, staring out at the big woman framed against the green sea in the gloomy gray dusk. "You losing your hearing, Moose? I've been banging on this door for 5 whole minutes." Mrs. Capone hisses between breaths. "You folks got a call." Mrs. Capone is fat around the middle, with arms as big as thighs and bosoms like 2 jiggling watermelons. She is hot and out of breath from the walk up the stairs, but Mrs. Capone is the one who answers the phone because it's right outside her door. Given her size and her difficulty with stairs, she seems the wrong person to live in the apartment next to the phone, but nobody asked me. "Go on ahead," she wheezes, backing her big self against the wall so I can squeeze by. Think about getting my dad, but he's been so tired I don't have the heart to wake him early. There probably isn't time to go get my mom, and she won't want to go outside with all that stinky permanent goop on her hair. At the foot of the stairs, I spot the receiver hanging down. "Hello, this is Matthew Flanagan," I say. "Matthew, you are—" The male voice hesitates. "Moose, sir. People call me Moose Flanagan." "Oh, yes, Moose. We met yesterday. This is Mr. Purdy, the headmaster of the Esther P. Marinoff School, where your sister, Natalie, is enrolled. Is your mom or dad available?" "Not right now, sir." Mr. Purdy sighs. "All right, then. You'll need to give them a message. Natalie is not settling in as we hoped. Tell them I'm terribly sorry, but as I explained to your mom, we were only taking her on a trial basis. They need to come pick her up. Today. Tonight." "Tonight? Is she okay?" I ask. Yes, she's fine, son, perfectly fine. She's just not ready for the program. We have here is all. Just not ready," he says. "Tell your mom and dad they must pick her up tonight. Can you do that for me, son?" "Natalie isn't ready," I ask. "But she's only been there for one day." 36 hours. Yes, I know. These things become clear rather quickly, I'm afraid. Have your parents call me if they have questions. Otherwise, I will expect them this evening. The phone clicks in my ear, and the questions flood my brain. Why? What did she do? What happened? How could they know anything about Natalie in one day? They didn't even try. I want to go back to Santa Monica, but not this way. Not if it means giving this news to my mom. My feet feel suddenly too heavy, the stairs too steep. I push open our door. My mom is back. Her hair is in permed flat with one wiggly curl across her forehead. She's wearing a dress I've never seen before. "How do I look?" She whirls around, her whole face radiant. I get a big whiff of sour perm and heavy perfume smell. I open my mouth, but no words come out. "I got my hair done. Did you see my note?" "Mom." The words are frozen in my chest. It's beautiful. My voice cracks. My mom's eyes register that something is wrong. "Moose." She touches my shoulder. It was hard to leave her there. Of course it was. What did we expect? But this is her chance, son. She's going to get better. I know it. I feel it right here. She pats her heart. I can't look at her. "Time to wake Dad," I mutter. The bed creaks when I sit down in my parents' dark room, but my dad doesn't stir. His hair seems to have slipped back on his head. It isn't growing thick and full across his forehead the way mine does. His bald spot, which used to be no bigger than a quarter, is now the size of a baseball. The creases in his face look deeper too. I jiggle his arm. "Dad," I say, "we have to go pick up Natalie. Mr. Purdy called. They don't want her at the Esther P. Marinoff. She can't stay there. Not even tonight." My father opens his eyes. He looks as if he just stepped on a nail. "Come again?" he says. By the time I finish explaining the second time, he's sitting up in bed. "Does your mom know?" I shake my head. He takes a deep breath and lets it out with a whistle. His eyes focus on a worn spot on the rug. "Okay, son, I'll take it from here," he says. Chapter 11. The Best in the Country. Same day, Monday, January 7th, 1935. When my dad tells my mom, she seems to have no reaction. She goes in her room, puts on her regular clothes, and comes out with her purse and her gloves in her hand. "Let's go." she says, her face blank, her eyes dead. Sit down, honey, my father says. We don't have to go right this minute. Let's just take a deep breath here. Now, my mom says, waiting like a child at the door. My father's shoulders are hunched. He gets his shoes, jacket, and hat and starts to open the door. No, my mother says, you can't go. You have to be at work at 8. I'll go by myself. You can't go by yourself. Yes. My mom shoves my dad hard. His arm bangs the wall. My mouth falls open. I've never seen her do anything like this. Moose, my father asks, his voice quiet. Will you go with your mother? On the boat, my mom seems better. Her eyes are angry now, not dead. Here we go again, I think. Before the Esther P. Marinoff, the Behrman School was it. And before that, the heat treatments. And before that, the aluminum formula. And before that, UCLA. At UCLA, they made us cut Natalie's hair, shaved it right off. They tested her like she was some kind of insect. They tested the movement of her eyes, the sensitivity of her ears, the color of her pee. They tested her allergies, reflexes, muscle strength, her speech in a dark room, her reaction to Tchaikovsky, the way she ate, slept, burped, blew her nose, and even what she thought. Especially what she thought. Nothing about her was private. At home, she'd spend hours in her room, rocking like a boat in a terrible storm. But it was UCLA, my mother would remind us. When she said the name, it had a golden glow. They promised us a cure if, a word my mother can't even seem to hear. Natalie's problem fit the diagnosis they were studying. And so I spent months riding in the rumble seat of my Graham's car to and from Westwood and hours sitting in the waiting room, until the day they let us know their findings. An interesting case, they said, but not what we're looking for. You should consider donating her brain to science when she dies. When she dies, my mother said, she's 10 years old. They shrugged their shoulders and handed my dad a bill. Things fell apart at my house after that. Ants in the sink, flies on the garbage, cereal for supper, no clean dishes, Natalie in the same dirty dress, the blood of picked scabs on her arm. It was months before my mother left the house again, and that was with my mom's sisters, my grams and grandpa, her friends and cousins all around. I don't remember when my mom decided that Natalie was going to stay 10, but I think it might have been then. Sitting in Mr. Purdy's office, I imagine punching him in the nose. My arm twitches just thinking about it. I'm afraid, Mr. Purdy explains when he comes in, she's more involved than we can handle right now. We're equipped for boys with the kind of challenge your daughter faces, but not girls. You might want to look into the Deerham in Marin County. Mr. Purdy hands my mother a card with an address scribbled on it. Deerham, my mother's voice catches. Isn't that an asylum? I don't think it's helpful to get caught up with words, Mrs. Flanagan. We're looking for a way to help your daughter. Let's not let words come between us. My mother takes her green feathered hat off as if she's staying. The kids who graduate from your school get jobs. They have lives. Some of them do get jobs, yes. That's what I want for Natalie. I understand that, Mrs. Flanagan, but it's not working out for her here. It's only been 2 days. Surely even a usual child would have some adjustments to a new setting. Mr. Purdy grunts. Mr. Purdy is the kind of man who can make a grunt seem polite. My husband and I, my mom continues, have done a lot of research on this, and we believe this program, your program, is the best in the country. You are turning out kids who can function in the world. And that's kind of you to say, and I don't think, my mother is unstoppable, that we will be able to replicate your success elsewhere. So I wonder if there isn't some way we could make this work. Mr. Purdy shakes his head. She can't stay here now, but if you wish, I could put you in touch with someone who might be able to help Natalie. Help her get ready, my mother offers. She sits up straighter in her chair. Yes, Mr. Purdy smiles, his ladylike hands fingertip to fingertip. He tips them forward to my mother like he's rolling a ball to her. Then he swivels in his squeaky chair and gets a folder behind him. He copies down a number on a slip of paper and hands it to my mother. My mother looks at the page and folds it closed. Mr. Purdy stands up to signal the end of our meeting. I stand up too, but my mother does not. Mr. Purdy and I sit down again. I'm proud of my mother for this. Proud of her for getting all she can from this man, but I'm angry too. No matter what this little paper says, my mother will do it. Once she sent away for voodoo dolls and carefully followed the instructions some witch doctor in the West Indies wrote about how to relieve Natalie's condition. Another time she took Natalie to a church where everybody stood around and waved their arms. She read the Bible to her for 2 hours every day while Natalie sat staring at her right hand as if there were a movie playing on her palm, and she couldn't bear to pull herself away. And then there was a school where my mom taught music classes for free until they let Natalie in. And when they did, Natalie just sat in the fancy classroom tearing bits of paper into tiny pieces. With Natalie there never is a happy ending. But my mom won't ever believe that. Forgive me, Mr. Purdy. I'd like to know what happened, my mom says, her brown eyes staring him down. I had hoped Mr. Flanagan would be here with you. Mr. Purdy looks at me. My husband is working the evening shift. Of course, Mr. Purdy nods. He looks around his cluttered office as if he's searching for a way out. Natalie is, I would say, unresponsive. He peeks at my mother to see if this will do. My mother doesn't blink. I'm afraid there was a bit of a skirmish over a box of buttons and some unfortunate behavior. Your daughter is 10, you said, Mrs. Flanagan. Mr. Purdy's watery eyes are suddenly sharply focused on my mom. Yes, my mother says. Her white-gloved fingers close into a tight fist around the handle of her green pocketbook. She gets up early. She likes to watch the sunrise, I say. Mr. Purdy looks at me, then back at my mom. As you can see, we are located in Presidio Heights. It's a fine residential neighborhood, but perhaps not an ideal spot for someone like your daughter. His voice trails off. My mother waits. And though our neighbors are largely encouraging of what we're trying to do here, we must be cautious about taking children who might strain the relationship we've worked so hard to build. Children who are, one might say, overly vocal. She screamed? My mother asks. Yes, she did. For the better part of an hour, I'm afraid. Your daughter's voice is quite shrill, and coupled with her early rising habits. But you think this is something that, my mother holds up the folded slip of paper, Mrs. Kelly can help us with? Indeed I do, Mr. Purdy said, standing up again. He has a goodbye smile on and he's looking at his watch. And why is this different for boys? She asks. The boys' cottage is located in the old maid's quarters, which is farther from the neighbors. Mr. Purdy sits down again. He sketches a quick map for us. It looks like a bad pirate's map with an X marked for the treasure. Did you take her buttons away? I ask. My mom looks at me, then back at Mr. Purdy. We can't have a child who screams like a banshee at 5:15 in the morning in a neighborhood like this. Now, if you'd like to spend some time working with Mrs. Kelly, there's a good possibility she can help Natalie bring this problem under control. I can't promise you, of course, but if Mrs. Kelly feels that Natalie is ready for a program, we'll consider her application again in May. My mother is up now, offering her hand to Mr. Purdy to shake. Of course, my husband and I appreciate all the help you've given us. In the waiting room, Natalie's legs are open, the way my mother always tells her not to sit. She is seated on a needlepoint brocade chair, and I see by the way her fingers moving that she is counting the stitches in the seat. We wait until she finishes the last stitch at the bottom before she starts again with the first stitch at the top. Our timing is perfect. We've had a lot of practice with this, my mother and I. I grab the old brown suitcase that says Natalie Flanagan on all 6 sides, and we hustle. Natalie out the door. She is walking behind us now, a teenage girl acting as if she's 8. Chapter 12. What about the electric chair? Tuesday, January 8th, 1935. The next morning seems just like normal, with Natalie watching the sunrise and then asking for some lemon cake, and my mom telling her she's silly sweet pea and she can't have it. My mom has a little slip of paper Mr. Purdy gave her taped to the icebox door. Twice now she asked my father how early he thinks she should call. I hurry past the Madamans on the way down to the boat for school. The fog's in and everything is gray. The foghorns bellow deep low notes. First one end of the island, then the other. When I get to the Trixels, Teresa Madaman sticks her head out. Moose, can I come with you? To school? I ask. Don't you have kindergarten at the Cacone's apartment? Teresa ducks her head back inside. Janet, I'm sorry, I have to go to school with Moose today. I hear her yell. Janet is B. Trixel's daughter. She's the same age as Teresa, but that is the one and only similarity they have. Mommy, Janet whines. Teresa's escaping again. Teresa, you can't go out. I told your mommy I'd look after you. You know that, I hear B. Trixel call. Teresa groans. When is my mom going to get back from the hospital? Having a baby couldn't possibly take this long. Do you think she went shopping? Teresa, B. Trixel calls. Come get me as soon as you get home, Teresa hisses and ducks back inside. When I get down to the Frank M. Cokes, Piper is there, waiting for me. I've been caught up with Natalie. I forgot about all of Piper's projects. I wonder how long before she brings it up. Boys first, she says. For a second, I hesitate, wondering if she has the gangplank booby trapped. You know, Moose, I owe you an apology. She clatters across the gangplank behind me. For what? I ask, thinking of at least 300 things she could be apologizing for. I shouldn't have made you meet with my dad. I was just worried about your sister, is all. But now that she's safely off the island, what do I say to this? She's got to know. Nat's back. My father told everyone when we didn't show up for the party at the officers' club, right? Oh, I say. Oh, do you accept my apology or not? I accept your apology. Okay, Piper says. And I just wanted to explain something else, too. Helping me with the laundry isn't against the warden's rules. Here it comes. Oh, really? I say. You bet. All right, let's ask your dad if it's okay, I say. Do you ask permission to put on your underwear every morning? I'm just pointing out. I know exactly what you're pointing out, but no one here sticks to those stupid rules. You're the only one, Moose Flanagan. I shrug. And besides that, you'll be going back on your word. You told my dad you'd help me. You promised. Why should I help you? You treat me like something stuck on the bottom of your shoe. She smiles her most charming smile. I'll be nice now. No, you won't. Well, for a little bit anyway. I laugh. It sneaks out the corner of my mouth before I can stop it. She laughs too. An icy wind blows her hair off her shoulders and bites through my sweater. Let's go inside, she says. The boat pitches in the wake of a big ferry. I walk as if I've just learned how, grasping the side of the door. I get myself inside the cabin where it's warm and steamy like hot chocolate. Piper's cheeks and the tip of her nose are rosy. Her long hair is blown every which way. The cabin is empty except for two guards and a scrawny little man in a suit. The scrawny man is handcuffed to one of the guards. The hair on the back of my neck stands up. Oh, that's Weasel on his way out to court, Piper says. What for? Another appeal, probably. He's one of the convicts that knows as much about the law as the lawyers do. They call them jailhouse lawyers. My dad says Weasel could convince the hens they're better off with a fox in charge, and then persuade the jury it was the chicken's best interests to be eaten. You know, Annie would never do this if there was even the slightest chance she'd get in trouble for it. She's back to her playing now. You don't know Annie, and neither would Jimmy. Not if it were really against the rules, Piper says. I look at Weasel again. Forget it, Piper. What if I promise to be nice to your sister? Will you then? She asks. I'll think about it, I say. Well, think fast, because I'm doing it today. You'll be nice to Natalie, no matter what. Promise, swear to God, she says. Never call her names. Never tell your dad stuff about her. Treat her really kind. Double swear to God. She holds her hand up like someone swearing her in. I stare at her right through her pretty brown eyes. There is something true in those eyes, and something false too. I nod. All right. You'll help? I suppose, I say carefully, not to look at Weasel again. She rubs her hands together. We're in business. All you need to do is talk about Alcatraz. Get people in the right mood. You'll talk up the place, kind of like the warm-up, and I'll tell a few people, then let the word spread. You must know some Alcatraz stories, she says as the boat mortar grinds beneath our feet. Inside her notebook, she shows me a small sign. Once in a lifetime opportunity. Get your clothes laundered by Al Capone and other world-famous public enemies. All clothes cleaned on Alcatraz at the only laundry facility in the world run by convicted felons, including the notorious Scarface Al and Machine Gun Kelly. Only costs 5 cents. I groan. Al Capone? It's only one little mention. She flashes her movie star smile. Nope, not doing it. She ignores this. We walk off the boat now, just behind Weasel and his guards. Follow my lead. Then when I leave, you take over. That's all you have to do. Talk. Did the warden say talking was against the rules, Moose Man? Talking about Capone is. Fine, don't talk about him then. He's not the only convict we have. You know, jeepers. In Mrs. Bim's class, Piper moves into action. She motions me to the back of the room, where history books are stacked waist-high and a bunch of kids are copying answers from last night's homework. My head says don't follow her, but my feet walk back there. Been a hard week, don't you think, Moose? Piper says to me so loud she clearly means to be overheard. Did you see that shiv? What's a shiv? The girl asks. It's a dagger made of old silverware carved out of a pot handle. The cons use them to stab each other or kill our dads, Piper says, though she barely looks at the girl as if relaying this information is not her aim at all. I guess they found it in a library book, Piper says. Pages carved out in a knife shape. How did they find it? Do you know, Moose? I shrug. He knows, he just doesn't want to tell. Piper glares at me, then slips away. So what happened? The girl demands. Somebody got stabbed, I guess, I say. What's the inside of a cell house look like? The fat kid asks. Never been in there, I say, but my dad says the cells are like cages. Each one has a toilet, a sink, a bed, and a man. What about the electric chair? Anyone seen that? A girl wants to know. We don't have one, I answer. How about them firing squads? The fat kid is turned around in his seat. This is the United States of America. We don't have firing squads, I explain. Yeah, that's not how we knock people off here. We fry 'em. I read all about it. It's like this. The skinny kid shakes all over to demonstrate. What about the mental bracelets? The metal bracelets, handcuffs, and woozy what sits on their legs. I think maybe they just wear them for, special occasions, I explain. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Piper talking to Dell. If he goes for this, everyone will listen too. So what happened? Scout asks. With the shiv in the library book? The girl seems proud of herself for knowing the word now. Like I said, somebody sliced up a guy, maybe killed him. I have no idea what I'm talking about now. That's the thing about the cell house library, I say. It's a high risk operation. Really? A girl asks. Books are overdue, I explain. They lock you up. They have a special cell for it. Overdue library book cell. If it's more than 10 days overdue, they put you in the hole. Solitary confinement. No kidding, the fat kid asks. I can see him fingering his library book, which I'm guessing is past due. Oh yeah, I say. I'm starting to enjoy myself. And you should see what happens when you forget to say please. Bread and water for an entire week. Forget thank you, and it's even worse. Oh, come on, somebody asks. Forget to wash your hands before supper? They slap you in leg irons. Prison is a bad place, I'm telling you. Scout is biting his lip, trying not to laugh. Most everyone knows I'm kidding, but one girl isn't too sure. On the other hand, I say, we have the politest felons in America. They say please, thank you, pardon, and excuse me. If you're going to be robbed or murdered, you really want a polite guy to do it. Someone who offers you a chair and some milk and cookies first. It's kind of like being shot by your grandmother. Who wouldn't prefer that? You must learn a lot living there, Skinny Girl says. She's taking in my every word. Oh yeah, on weekends there are special classes the cons teach us. You learn how to blow safes, make silencers, steal cars. Thieves' school, we call it. Homework's tough though. Ever tried to get a dead body in a rumble seat? Everyone laughs. They all know I'm kidding now. Then the bell rings. Thank God, because I'm out of stories. I look around and see Dell has disappeared. He comes back in a few minutes with his sweater on, but nothing but bare skin underneath. He rolls up his shirt and hands it to Piper, who is busy talking to Scout, sign in hand. When we are all settled in our seats, Mrs. Bimp starts rattling on about the importance of good posture and how no cultivated lady or gentleman would dream of slumping during oral reports, the way certain members of this class are doing. She is just getting warmed up when the notes start appearing. How about tomorrow? One pencil rolled up of paper asks. No, only today, Piper writes back in her back-slanted cursive. How much for socks? Another says. 2 cents, Piper writes back. Will my blouse come back bloody? My mom will kill me if I ruin my blouse. No. Can you advance me a nickel? No. Please. The notes come back again, this time written in pencil grinding capital letters. No, Piper scribbles mercilessly. When class ends, 2 lines form outside the bathrooms. One by Miss Bim's students come out, sweaters over bare chests, shoes with no socks, jumpers with no shirts beneath. I watch from a distance as they hand Piper their clothes and their money. Please, Piper, I can't take off my dress. Can I bring something tomorrow? Penelope begs Piper. I'm sorry, Piper explains. She rolls her lips together and shakes her head. Our arrangement simply won't allow that kind of flexibility. She looks really sorry, too, as if she would change the rules in a second, if only she could. The girl marches off to the bathroom and returns, slip in hand. Can't do it, too. Personal, Piper tells the girl, whose face is now as red as her hair. At the end of the day, I see 2 8th-grade guys walking home bare-chested, shivering in the gray, foggy afternoon. Piper limited her sales efforts to 7th-grade class, but probably they had a friend in the 7th grade to send their clothes in. I'll bet Piper got twice as many 8th-grade kids this way. I have to admit, Piper's pretty smart, but she's going to get in trouble for this. I just know it.